Hi, my name is Anthony Guardia. I have the honor of getting to host the very first superintendent's update in a while. It's not the first time you've ever done that. I was asked by the former executive director, Ryan Boyd, who, if we can just take a moment, recognize he did an excellent job putting this together. He was the one who reached out to me, asked me to do it, but now we're in very good hands with Ian at the helm. WCAT is still one of, I think, the best assets in Wakefield, and we want to thank them for putting this on. With that said, I will turn it over to who I'm joined with.
Hi, I'm Doug Lyons. I'm the superintendent of schools.
And I'm Kara Mauro. I'm the assistant superintendent of schools.
So, guys, I know the big story that at least all the parents are talking about is cell phone policy, but before we get to that, and I promise anybody who is watching or listening, we will talk about that. Let's start with just school year opened. What's going on? What should parents be looking for or looking forwards to? And then we'll get right into the fun stuff, or at least fun stuff for me. I don't know.
Yeah, so September is coming to a close. First of all, in terms of Ryan and being the architect of this project, one of the things that we've been talking about for a while is what are different ways that we can work just to inform the community about what's happening in the Wakefield Public Schools. So this is kind of the first meeting, our first kind of opportunity to give this a try and see how it goes, and we can learn from what we're doing and hopefully expand the agenda as we move through it. So, but we also the timing of it is it's the end of September, and quite a bit has happened in September. Just ahead of September, we had an acceleration grant that we were awarded by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, where we welcomed back our kindergartners early in the process, or early to school, where they came back in smaller settings, and it's like having a soft opening for our kind of earliest or our youngest students entering the school system. So very pleased to have that happen. And we also have a number of other things that happen in September. You know, we get in, we get settled, and getting in and getting settled, it means different things for different students and families, right? And so some kids jump in like they never left, right? They love school and they just fall right in and they're able to kind of negotiate their day. Others have a little bit more difficult time transitioning back to school and have some different needs. And it's us learning what students need, and also students learning kind of what we need of them to participate in their learning. So that's kind of what we spend a lot of time doing in September. And I know we do some benchmark testing, which I know Kara can talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I think we have a common agreement across all of our schools, and I know I speak for our principals when we want to put a heavy emphasis on, similar to what Doug said, just students acclimating to their new grade level, their new teacher, their new classroom environment, and really building those relationships for the new school year. And so it's this time of year, end of September, where we start to begin our benchmark testing, which is, primarily in the areas of ELA and math, to get a general sense of our students' skill set, areas of growth, and also to really drive our instruction moving forward. One of the things that we've been talking about, the last couple of years, we spent a lot of time talking about which assessments give us the best information. So I think that we've really nailed down which assessments we want to use to benchmark and progress monitor our students throughout the year. Recently, we've been talking a lot with either at school committee or parents around getting that information into the hands of parents so that they can be more informed about their students' progress as well. So I think that the big push that's happening right now at the elementary level is our DIBELS screening, which is meets criteria from Department of Ed as a dyslexia screener, with the idea of catching challenges early and often and putting the correct interventions in place. So we are in process of that testing right now, and we will be planning to get that first round of screening information to parents. So we're talking a lot about how to communicate that information to parents in a meaningful way, and have it be a nice entry point at conferences as well.
Yeah, we really feel like teachers are kind of back at it and doing a great job. And like I said, trying to learn about students and what they need, right? And I would urge any parents who feel like they have questions or worries about their child and what's happening and how they're developing, we would urge you to please either reach out directly to your principal, to your teacher. You're certainly welcome to reach out to either one of us. And we always kind of refer parents, if they're so inclined, you can reach out to the CPAC. You know, Ann Herzog runs the CPAC now, or is directing.
Wonderful.
And is a kind of an amazing partner for us in that space, and has been just such a great resource for parents, especially of young children who are trying to negotiate any number of different things and trying to learn and understand what their children need.
No, wonderful. So, I mean, that's exciting stuff. I mean, that's very exciting stuff, and it's the beginning of the school year. Now, it wouldn't be the beginning of a school year without a very intense policy debate. Now, I'm going to try to set the table, but correct me if I'm wrong if I'm explaining this incorrectly. So, the situation is that, understandably, young people get very, very distracted by their cell phones. And we were talking before this when I was in high school. I don't want to say how far away it was, or middle school. I was distracted by my TI-83 calculator and the Nokia phone that had Snake. So I understand the need. There seems to be, in my opinion, and let me just say what the policy is so people know. So basically the policy that's being considered is an idea where every young person would put their cell phone in a pouch that can only be opened by the school at the beginning of the day to put it in, and then at the end of the day, so the kids cannot use their phone throughout the day. Is that a fair, very basic, understood?
So the concept is correct, but you know, we don't want to mislead people when we say policy, right?
Oh, sorry.
And so, you know, school committee makes policy. So right now there is a policy around responsible use of social media, right? And that includes cell phones. So that would be a policy that you could find on the website, and it's a district policy, and it's for all schools, all kids,
I'm
right?
having flashbacks of my school committee days when I used the word policy. Correctly.
Right?
Yes, keep going.
And so, but in regard to there is guidance that comes from the handbook, right? And then there's kind of guidance that comes from the faculty, staff, and administration. And so there is guidance in the handbook around consequences for inappropriate cell phone use. And there was more language around, you know, please keep your cell phone in your locker or your backpack unless we ask you to bring it to class, and the teachers, you know, engaging kids to use their cell phones in class in any number of different ways, right? And so sometimes kids are taking pictures and videos in class that might contribute to a lesson. Sometimes they're using a timer or a calculator in math or science. So those are ways that teachers have incorporated them into lessons, right? And so not to muddy the waters or differentiate the two, but really what we're trying to do. So this is, first of all, this is a federally funded grant that has come through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. And what the kind of, it's also advised by the U.S. Surgeon General, right? And that there's an advisory from the U.S. Surgeon General that is very basic and very preliminary. And it says, you know, the effects of social media on kids and the pull of cell phone use can really be distracting and at times harmful, and has led to things like bullying and harassment in schools. And these things really disrupt teaching and learning. And most importantly, they disrupt kind of the working memory and attention span of students, right?
Sorry, I was going to say, so Doug, my theory, and just to be clear, you know, when we first started this, you asked me to be devil's advocate, so I'm not taking a side. I'm just arguing to argue, right? That's but so wouldn't the argument, and this is where I at least found in my just reading on social media, isn't the main argument though, shouldn't kids not be accessing their phones anyway? Like, how are they able, you know, shouldn't it be in a backpack or in a locker? Shouldn't it be controlled already? What's the need for the pouch? Because if there is an emergency, I don't want my kid's phone stuck in a pouch. I want to be able to call them. So how is that happening?
Okay. So you cover a lot of ground there. So first, in regard to, so most of the time, more times than not, cell phones are out of sight and not used unless it's directed by teachers. More times than not. The problem's not in the classroom, right? The problem is during unstructured times, in the hallway, during passing, in bathrooms, and in the cafeteria, right? And arrival and dismissal. These times are really important. We don't want to be the phone police. We don't want to take phones away. But at the same time, we want to limit use and access so that we can really prioritize or kind of get their attention span. For us, this is not a knee-jerk reaction because a few kids did something wrong with their cell phone. That is not it. This is more objectively about us just trying to create some boundaries where we can really have more of the student's attention. And the counter argument to this, and I don't want to jump into your space, but the counter argument around, well, it's how kids communicate. True, but communicating face to face is also not overrated.
Well, and also I would argue to your point is they can use their phones afterwards. I think the question becomes, so what you're saying, and I'm just trying to understand it correctly, is we're not having a problem in the classroom per se. We're having a problem where the kid leaves their phone in the locker, they leave the classroom, they grab it in their locker, and perhaps, that's where some bullying's occurring and Snapchat's occurring, and they're not just using it appropriately, where it shouldn't be used in school at all unless there's a situation that arises. I guess then the question becomes, if I'm a parent, and I am a parent, but if I had a parent in the school, if I had a child in that school, I would say my fear, and watching the news nowadays, you see it if God forbid, there is a situation, and you saw it with the water main break at the Galvin, right?
Yep.
We've seen it at our schools before. Unfortunately, we've also had our share of threats and whatnot.
Yep.
If I want to contact my child to
Yep.
make sure that they're okay, to make sure that they're safe,
Yeah.
I would have a panic. If I was a parent, I'd be
Yeah.
having a panic attack if I
Yeah.
heard that.
Yeah.
How does my child communicate with me? Or I guess the flip side is, how does the school department increase my confidence in their ability to communicate with me that my child is okay in that situation?
So it's a great question, and
Damn right.
and so just taking that in parts, right? Because taking that in parts. So one, we want parents to be able to get in touch with their children if they need to, right? And so this idea of having it in a pouch. So what we're talking about are earbuds, watches, Apple Watches, or anything that can access the internet, right? To all go in the pouch. And questions that we've gotten is, well, what happens if my child has a medical issue? Of course,
The child's diabetic or something.
there's no questions. There's no question, no gray. They would absolutely have access. So the question then is, well, what would be different access? Instead of a pouch that might lock, it might be a pouch with a Velcro clip, right? And so we're working through this now, and we know that there are exceptions that we know about, and then there are exceptions that we don't know about that we have to learn and work through, if that makes sense, right? But in regard to parents being able to get in touch with their children, if there's a magnetic lock, or if they have a Velcro pouch, they can certainly get access to their phones. But right now, if your phone is in your locker, you're going to have to go out to a locker and get your phone. If your phone is in a pouch, you're going to have to take it out of your backpack, and we're going to have to unlock it, and you're going to have to take your phone out, right? And so we need to be able to do that for students so that they can get in touch with their parents. Or, and I know that this has been thrown out, and I feel like an old guy in the room even saying this, you could just go, if people need to get in touch, not en masse, but individuals need to get in touch, they certainly can go to the office and contact their parents.
Well, I think the fear is if God forbid, right? Let's talk about what everybody's jumping to. Is if God forbid there was a serious emergency.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking. If somebody, God forbid, tried to shoot the school or something like that happened.
Yep.
That's where people's minds go. Because that's where my mind went. I said, if that happened, I would want to know where my child is at exactly that moment. And I understand that argument. I would get that. Like, what do you, I guess, and there may be no answer to it, Doug. Like, there may be no answer to it. it's like, hey, if that happens, nobody knows how to respond appropriately, right? What do you tell parents who say, like, I just want to know where my kid is in an emergency, that they can I don't want to picture my kid struggling to open a pouch if he wants or she wants to tell me, hey, I love you, or hey, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how this is such a weird phenomenon since gun control has been loosened, since social media. This is a relatively brave new world for everybody. So I don't know if you have the answer, but I think that's the fear.
There's a lot of fear around this idea.
Yep.
There's a lot of fear around this idea, and that's probably the greatest. And Kara and I are both parents. Kara's children are a little bit younger than mine, but of course I can relate to that without gray. There's no gray there. That's black and white. I would want to get in touch with my children no matter what. And I think one of the things that we need to be able to address in our upcoming meetings with parents around what this could look like is, how do we let kids access their phone if they need them, right? How do we do that if there's an emergency? And we need to have a solution for that. But I don't know that dismissing the entire idea or the entire concept and the detrimental effects that cell phones are having on teaching and learning, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? And so I don't know that one fear negates, student,
agreed.
Right? And so it's a similar, you mentioned a corollary a minute ago, right? Some parents have said, you should just not have phones in schools. Well,
I was going to say the other argument is, why do they even have them in the first place?
Right. And they have them because parents want to be in touch. And that's where we are right now in 2023, right? The majority of kids, if not all kids, have phones. And it's how kids communicate. It's how parents communicate with their kids. It's how they keep tabs and stay in touch, right? And so for us, this is not, we don't want this to feel like it's a punishment, but more a step to try to help us make space for teaching and learning, right? When a teacher would say, please put your screens down, if everyone has a computer in front of them, you'll see this at the high school, you'll see this at the middle school. A teaching practice is, Anthony, they'll say, could you please put your screens down because we need to have a face-to-face communication right now. Excuse me. That's not overrated. Communication is a skill that needs to be practiced. And, we've heard from some kids, oh my gosh, you're taking away my ability to communicate with my friends. You know what? When friends get together and they don't have cell service, you know what they do with one another? They sit, they talk, right? They talk face to face. And there are some real benefits to that. We just think that we're just trying to make a little space and just trying to figure out a path forward and not dismiss the whole concept in its entirety because of fear, right? And we also think, and Kara has pointed this out, Kara's philosophy is, and I don't want to speak for you, Kara, but you shared the other day, it could be only a matter of time before it becomes a mandate that we just can't. It just gets it. Cell phones and social media and all of the pull and all of the distractions are just getting in the way so much that it might only be a matter of time before they just say no cell phones.
Yeah, I think it's just the idea that this is something that is being put out to districts to try, encouragement to try this as an approach to address. Something I think that everyone agrees on is that we need a reset of expectations. I think between, you have turnover of administration, you have throw COVID in the mix, you have just general feelings about cell phone use and when parents are going to give them to them. I think what we're seeing in grades 5 and 6, it's a little better. You might not have widespread, everyone has a cell phone. I think that and I don't want to speak for all of the teachers, but I think generally the teachers feel like they say keep the phone in the backpack. It stays in the backpack. But I think as you get up into 7th and 8th, it becomes more widespread that all of the kids have cell phones, and I think the reality is they're mostly on them, which I think sparks the argument around the emergency situation, because if they were in the locker, there would be that walk to the locker to get it. But I think the reality is most of the kids have their cell phones on them all day. And it's a really hard thing to manage because if you're teaching the class, you might not even see or hear the pings happening or the distractions happening. So even if you're not noticing it, it can still be happening. And, I think anytime Department of Ed throws out a chance to pilot something, which pilot would imply we're trying it, we're seeing how it works. We're not going to extremes. We know there's going to be gray area. We know there's going to be case-by-case scenarios that we need to consider. But it gives us a chance to also provide feedback before a mandate might happen.
Right.
Well, and two thoughts I want to add to this is, one, I do think the idea of cell phones being distracting is obvious. I mean, I get distracted even now, right?
We've all said that. Yeah, adults too.
This is not anything new. I do think it is a level of, communication and fear.
Mm-hmm.
But this might be a school committee nerd question, but I'm just so curious what your thoughts are, this isn't really, at least when I was on, again, this is way too long ago, but when I was on the school committee, the idea was the school committee could not have a policy unless it impacted every single school equally. So this, not to put all the pressure on you, but this is really an administrative decision. The school committee can like it or not. It is not their, obviously you want feedback and you want to work with them, but this really is the decision of the educators and the administration, correct? Like that's a fair, is that right?
I think we're looking at it as a procedure.
Yeah.
More than a policy to implement the current policy.
I think technically.
But this is such a school committee nerd question.
No. It's a great.
Me.
No, but there are people that are locked in on this, and process matters, and words matter, right? And so I think that there are more people interested in the question that you just asked than you might think.
Oh, good. All right. So at least I'm not alone.
And so I don't think you're alone. And so, I think you might be correct in what you're saying in regard to who owns what, right? But we're not looking to, we want the support of school committee on this, right?
Oh, understood.
And so, and I think that school committee has a range of thoughts and responses on this. We have school committee members that are parents. We have school committee members that are teachers in other districts. We have school committee members that are former teachers, right? So there's a range of experience and perspectives there, similar to the range of experiences and perspectives that parents have, and we're getting them all, right? And the question is, if we can collaborate together and work on this together, we may not agree on all of it, but we should be able to come up with something to pilot, to try, to learn and understand if what we're doing is working. And if it isn't, we won't keep doing it, right?
No, it's understood. And I think the other point I would make, which, and this is kind of sidetracked, and I know we have to go to the next section, is if there is a real concern about this, this also comes back. I know people don't like to talk about budgets and class sizes and the amount of teachers you have, but it is a lot easier I assume, for educators to manage this if class sizes were a lot smaller. So if when you go back and we go to town meeting and we talk to school budgets and you're one of those parents who feel like maybe you want your young person or your family to have a cell phone, well then vote for a higher school budget that puts more class teachers in there, because I'm sure it's much more manageable when a teacher doesn't have 25 to 30 kids, but 10 to 15 kids. Because then maybe your kid could have their cell phone on them all the time because you're not managing 26 kids in a room.
Yeah, I think...
you're getting my old...
But you're preaching to the choir in regard to class size, right? And so we think the smaller class sizes are better. It's a great experience for kids. Stronger relationships exist. I think class size really matters, and it's something that we're paying very close attention to. Yes, you're spot on.
Well, true. So now let's go to, because we only have a half hour, I don't want to take the whole time, but let's talk about October, and things coming up.
Yep.
So I'll leave it to you guys. What's coming up?
Thanks so much. October's packed. And so speaking of policy, on October 3rd, next Tuesday at 5 p.m., we have a Policy and Communications Subcommittee meeting, which is an open meeting, and I'm sure that we will have some people attending. who attended school committee the other night, but we'll also have some other perspectives as well. And one of the things that we really need to hear from, we need to hear from our school resource officers on this, and we also need to hear maybe a little bit more from teachers and counselors, right? So there's one thing to hear from Kara and myself. I think we feel like we talk all the time about school, right? But there's another thing entirely to hear a perspective from your child's teacher, or from a counselor that you know and has worked with your son, daughter, or your family, right? So October 3rd, policy and communication. October 5th, there's a school safety seminar where our SROs will be attending, and as well as some of our district leaders on the crisis team. So school safety is something that we're really trying to do professional development. It's a significant it's a really an important area for us. Ironically, right, we're talking about school safety here in regard to cell phones. The 7th is Town Day, which is a big day for school committee. They'll be there. October 10th and the 24th are school committee meetings. On the first meeting in October, that's October 10th, we're going to be talking about the Youth Risk Behavior Survey responses, which is always pretty sobering. It really gives a very candid snapshot about
Say that again.
what kids are thinking and feeling, and it might be a really nice, it might be a nice connect in regard to how kids are feeling about cyberbullying and social media. That might inform this conversation a little bit as well.
Well, and to add to that, just so people do know that there is an issue there, I was looking at the YRBS from a neighboring town, but it's all similar, right? You don't really see much difference between Stoneham, Melrose, Wakefield, Reading, Linfield, and the neighboring communities. But I remember, I think it was 69% of young people who identified as LGBTQ felt that they were bullied so much that they wanted to commit suicide within the past year, and it was in that middle school age demographic.
Yep.
So kids who were starting to come out or starting to feel that way, a big majority of them felt like they should commit suicide, and that's in 2023 in Massachusetts. So the issue is there, and when you read that YRBS data, it is sobering. Is the right word for it.
Right.
It hits you over the head.
There's no question. And so we also have on October 18th, we have the half day.
Yep. So that will be our second professional development half day. So we've just recently released our professional development plan for the year. I won't go into all the details. We'll be posting that on our website as well. But it just maps out, just if parents are wondering, why are you releasing my kids early? I have to make more plans for them. But we have it all planned out for the year, just differentiated by level and different topics throughout the year. So that will be our second one.
Right. And so, like I said, the 24th school committee meeting, and on the 26th is the tri-board meeting, which is really kind of our first opportunity to give an update on the new high school project, to give an update on kind of the budget, and also to give an update on where we are with the new teacher contract. So we have not yet settled our teacher contract. All of our other bargaining units are settled, but we're working really hard to really get a great contract for teachers.
Oh, wonderful. Well, guys, right at 29 minutes, I think this was a good first show. Hopefully we do some more, and thank you so much. And again, thank you to WCAT.
Thank you.
You.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.